This is the Authentic Dating series brought to you by Ahmad and David,
where we explore what it takes to have a dating life you're excited about.
Hey guys, I'm David.
I'm Ahmad.
And this is the Authentic Dating series.
This is a podcast which is all about empowering men to take control of their dating by teaching a complete understanding of how to create meaningful and passionate relationships that they desire. We're known for leaving men feeling confident in who they are and showing up in a way that's naturally attractive.
Desire. I think desire is a good word for this episode. So yeah, this is going to be an amazing episode. We've basically got Amy in from the Temple of Feminine to talk about what women want when it comes to sex and intimacy. You know, when we did our research over in the summer, a lot of men were like, you know, what do women want? Just tell us what women want and we'll go and do it. There was a lot of that, which isn't, you know, I totally understand and get it. So what we've done is get women and people that coach women to come in and talk. So you've heard the first episode from the season, which is episode 38, where we talked about, you know, what women think makes an attractive man. And now we've got someone who is an absolute expert in her field to talk about what it is that women want when it comes to sex and intimacy. But first, we'd just like to thank all our listeners for just sharing our episodes, telling their friends, coming on Instagram and telling us about what they loved and what they enjoyed and what they didn't enjoy. Actually, we'd love to hear about the feedback, really, about the episodes. And just, you know, it's just great to talk to people, and Instagram's a great platform for that. And obviously you can find us. All the links are in our show notes, but also, you know, you'll find us at Authentic Dating Series on Instagram, where we're very active. Photos, videos, IGTV, live, there's everything. We're there. Like, we're really there.
Yeah. If you caught our 30-day challenge as well, we're also doing challenges now. So
yeah. Like, if you have a challenge idea, let us know. It's something we could put together.
Yeah, that last one made us famous.
Yeah, we're on the BBC and shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, this episode is going to be, it's jam-packed. Like, I really enjoyed like recording it. I remember the day we recorded it, it was just filled up with so much information about sex and intimacy. Like, we touch on intimacy a lot. We talk about, you know, what women desire, how to deal with performance issues. I think was a really important thing in there, because I know for us men, it's like, you know, the hardness of our cock and it's a performance is like, that's like literally who we are sometimes. And Amy goes into what it is like for a woman when a man struggles to get it up, comes too quickly, and so forth. And you'd be really surprised about what she actually says.
It's actually one of those episodes that if you listen to it, you know, more than once, you're going to hear different things. And as you progress in your own personal journey, you're going to understand different things from what she said.
Yeah, and Amy comes from a tantric background, much like myself. She's probably more schooled in it than I am. But she talks from the point of view of, she talks about like root and sacral. And when she's talking about that, she's talking about the chakras. So they're kind of ancient energy centers. And the root chakra is like right at the base by your arsehole, basically. And your sacral chakra sits kind of at the base of your penis. You can Google this and look this up. Yeah. And when she's talking about energy, she's like, you know, that internal feeling where, you know, energy's moving, rising, or even if you just sit still and like tune into what the feeling is in the bottom of your foot, you kind of feel a tingling feeling. That's what she means when she's talking about energy. So when she talks about energy rising, that's that feeling you get. Or, you know, when you start to get aroused or your cock's getting hard, you get this kind of charge of energy around your cock and in your cock, which makes it hard. And that's what she's kind of talking about when she talks about energy.
Yeah, because she refers to these different words, so Dave's just making sure everyone understands. It's true. There's also yoni. When she says yoni, she means vagina. Yeah. And there's moon cup, which is...
Yeah, we talked about moon cup, which is actually, that is a cup that catches a woman's period blood.
Yeah.
And that can be used for all sorts of magic.
All of these things can be found on google.com. That's GOOGLE.com. Anything you don't understand. But no, we just wanted to prepare you because there are some different words. But actually, this episode, I think towards the end, you'll hear me say like there are some advanced techniques being expressed. And really, a lot of it is based on communication, but there's no running ahead with this. It's something that you need to understand for yourself first. So,
without further ado,
let's jump in. So we have an amazing show for you guys today, because we know so many people, when we set about and interviewed a bunch of men to find out what their main dating problems were, they all, one of the number one questions is like, what do women want? And there's so many variations of that. So I'm very excited for this episode.
Yeah, so we did an episode before about, what women think makes an attractive man. I never can say that properly. Because that was a question that came up a lot. Like, what do women find attractive? What do they want? But one of the other things that came up a lot was, what do women want when it comes to sex and intimacy?
So we have a very special guest with us today. If you could introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Amy. I founded Temple of the Feminine, which is a platform where I work with women, either one-to-one or through workshops, in connecting them to their feminine energy and their sexuality. So influenced heavily by tantric work that I've done on myself, and spiritual work and intimacy work from various different workshops and trainings that I've been on. I feel that I'm so pleased that I'm doing this podcast, because I thought you'd never ask what do women want in the bedroom. I'm very happy to answer that.
Well, it's a strange one, right? Because so many men have the question, but they don't seem to ask women.
Yeah, there seems to be this thing with guys, is that they'll have a question for themselves that they want to know something, but they won't voice it to a human being that they can ask. They may go to Google, assume that Google might be able to tell them. They go to YouTube. YouTube is a big learning platform for men. We found that men will go to YouTube and watch things, but they won't go to a physical woman and go, hey, like, what would you really want? Or even with the women that they're with, they don't ask the question.
And I think actually there's two things, right? It's like a sense of perhaps embarrassment and also like actually just not wanting to ask a woman, like it's kind of feeling like you should already know this. You're supposed to, as a man, you're supposed to come out and be ready to everything. You should be able to lead. You should be able to be good in the bedroom, and so it's like to ask is to admit weakness. Yeah.
What's your experience with men around this topic?
But that's a lot of pressure, right? Isn't it? To expect men to know exactly what you want.
Yeah.
When, if we're being honest, often we don't even know ourselves.
Yes.
So, and that's the way of the feminine, like it's so changeable, and, we are, the feminine energy, which many women embody, but not necessarily. The feminine energy is changeable. It's flowy. It's cyclical. So there is no one size fits all. And it's, it kind of like, I hear this like looking at YouTube, and I can understand why, but that's almost like I can, in my personal experience, when I've been with a man and I can tell he's picked something up on the internet and he's really trying, he's like, if I press this spot like really hard, quick, and it's like, very in the head, it's like we're not dropping into the moment, we're not feeling into each other, and it can really take away from the experience when that pressure of trying to have the right technique or trying to do the right thing, and there isn't in my experience a single man who is just good at sex. It's about how you connect with each other and about how you flow with each other. And it's interesting, we're talking about intimacy as well. And really talking about it with each other is the intimacy. And that's so opening. And we were talking just before about creating safety, like to be able to speak, like to sit down in front of each other and look in each other's eyes and speak about what you want and what you need and what feels good, and take that journey of exploration together is part of deepening the intimacy.
Well, you can't see, but I'm just nodding and nodding and nodding. I think it's I think what's a really important thing to do is almost not separate intimacy into two parts. We were talking about this before, but there's like emotional intimacy, which you can have with a lover, with a friend even. And there's also physical intimacy, which you're more likely to have with a lover or a partner. Like, how would you describe that for the men and women listening into like a quite concrete way, so they can be like, what is it that what do I really want actually in each moment?
So the sort of difference between intimacy and sex.
Yeah.
So this we were just talking about this before we started, and because I guess there is a difference, because you can have intimacy without sex, and you can have sex without intimacy.
Totally.
But really, I'm at a place now where I can't. I can have intimacy without sex, sorry, but I can't have sex without intimacy. So yeah, to be intimate is to really be able to see each other, to be able to kind of be vulnerable with each other, to really connect with each other on an emotional level. You know, and how that really for me links to physical intimacy is because I know that through my, you know, for my sort of sacred sexuality journey has really been about bringing my emotional and energy body into my sexuality. And for me, opening up my heart is a gateway to opening up my yoni. So I say yoni, when I say yoni, I mean my vulva, vagina, pussy, whatever you want to call her. You know, the energy link between the heart and the root is strong. Yeah. So when you're connecting from the root or from the sacral, and connecting just from your genitals, it might be pleasurable and fun, and you may have an orgasm, but then to bring that energy up into the heart space as well and connect in that sort of, I call it like a rod of energy, is expansive, opens up to intimacy, opens up to deeper connection.
My experience with this, because I've been in my own tantra journey for the last kind of year and a half, and I found like at the beginning that I was having a lot of sex without intimacy. I was very capable and able of having sex without intimacy. And I started to introduce more, I had a fear around if I was very intimate in sex in a loving way, that it meant something, that it meant that I loved this person, or that I was obliged in certain ways to act in a certain way. And the more I realized that actually me putting my heart into the sex, into the experience, deepen the experience of myself and the woman I was with, to a point where I didn't want to go back to just having sex.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go back to this very mechanical, very physical existence in sex, because it just felt very shallow, and it wasn't pleasurable.
Yeah.
And you just, as a man, I was like, wow, because I put my heart into this and I put some love and some care, it doesn't mean that I am indebted to this woman for the rest of my life. I don't now owe her a relationship or anything. You can still put some love and care into the sex you're having with women.
I think it's an interesting point, because what kind of come up for me as you're talking is, I can imagine a lot of men were listening intently and were just like, oh fuck, like how do we deal with this open-ended? It's almost like, well, it depends on the woman. And actually, from my experience, what I hear in that is it actually depends on my ability to be present, to listen, to be in touch with my own emotions, to be able to almost pick up where you're at and to see. And otherwise, it's like we were talking about earlier about men who watch something online and then they're like, right, this is how I achieve this result. So I'm just going to, apply pressure in point A and keep rubbing or keep stroking. And then eventually I'll get the result.
Yeah.
And actually that's how a lot of men think.
It's like very mechanical.
It's like a computer program.
Yes.
Step A, step B, step C.
Yeah.
And so I really get where you're coming from, like with the energy of things and being in touch. But a lot of men we're finding, like even one of our own clients, he's very in his head, and he can experience his physical in his head, but he can't feel it down here. He doesn't allow himself.
When he says down here, he's rubbing his chest.
Yeah, down here and lower. Yeah. Just keeping it safe. Yeah,
and that I think that's quite common, because that is the kind of masculine, isn't it? So we're kind of asking the masculine to come in and hold the masculine point in the bedroom, but also get in touch with your feelings and be in touch with your body, understand my emotions. But really, like you said, it's that presence. And when we're in our minds, or our mind isn't an awful thing, but sex is coming from the body. But when we're in our minds, we're in that goal-driven state. Oh man, I've had so many of these experiences. Just like they just want to come, and then the woman just wants the man to come because they just want it to be over, and it's just like, oh, everyone
just. There's this horrible tension there.
That's in the air. Like just quick.
It feels like a 100-meter sprint.
Yeah.
Everyone's tense.
What do we need to do to just get you to come? You know, I think a great practice is learning to not have to come.
Yeah.
Like, so not having to be so attached to that experience for men and women. Because that's when you really get in the mind. And if you're too in the mind, you lose connection with each other.
Totally.
And that's what it is, presence. And to get that presence, it's just slowing down a bit.
Yeah.
That's really maybe all you need to do is just slow down a bit. So in every moment of that intimacy, in every moment of that interaction, slowing down, even like, do you need to have sex that night? Can you slow down and maybe like feel into what's happening first and play with the energy between you? You know?
You go.
Oh, I think it's this. I think there's an influence of porn. Like I hate to demonize porn because I think that people demonize porn very readily. But there's this influence of a lot of us, not just men and women. I'm seeing more and more women who have raised watching porn and being like, this is how we're meant to have sex. It's meant to be very quick. It's meant to last like 5 minutes. It's meant to be like this jackhammer stuff. And then it's all done. And then we all kind of roll off and fall asleep. When actually, like you said, slowing down and like something that I started to really practice last year was introducing various things that made sure you slow down, like kissing. There's a magic in kissing. No.
Maybe to overstep that.
No, but you know what I mean? Like you can kiss someone so beautifully for 45 minutes, you know, to really build the arousal. There's no reason to go from kissing to having all your clothes off in 5 minutes. Like you can build the arousal. You can like go up and down, slow it down, speed it up. But a lot of that takes, like you said, presence, like being present to your own desire, because it's very easy to get carried away with that and just like run away and try and get to the end of the race. I don't know where I was going with this, but that's it. I was going to say like something as simple as massage, like adding in like some massage to just slow things down is something I found really beautiful. And it really, because you're just slowly touching your partner, it really gets you into how they feel and what's going on for them. Because if you can just like listen into the sounds, the movement of her body.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that, for me personally, because I had a very different experience to sex compared to David growing up. Like from a strict religious background, feeling like that was very taboo, not allowed. So I shunned it within myself as well as externally. So like I wouldn't allow myself to feel sexual because that would be wrong. And then externally be like, well, I'm not supposed to look at women, shouldn't touch women, shouldn't be interacting, all of that. So there was a very delayed experience of me getting in touch with actually how do I feel sexually, because now I would say to people we're all sexual beings, and it's not something that you really switch on and off. You might feel like you want to have sex or not have sex due to the external circumstances, but you are a sexual being. Like it's just innate. Our energy, we're talking about the energy, it's constantly there doing its thing. Sometimes you're on a bus and it just like you know, well, hello, it's just like, oh, hello, what's this? and when we suppress it, that it becomes very weird. And I think there's something else that comes to my mind is that for a lot of young men, like let's say, and this is why we tend to focus on a bit of the older when we're putting our message out, is up to a certain age there is this, like a biological driver that you just want to fuck, like that's what you want to do. And then I'd equate it to like young guys in cars. When we're young, we want to speed around everywhere. You know, but as you get a bit older, you're like, nah, I'm cool. I'm gonna chill.
Just want something reliable. Get some crazy.
I didn't say that. I may won't push the car. I wouldn't push the car as fast. I'd just be like, I'm not in a rush to get anywhere.
Okay.
I'm gonna take my time.
Yeah, and you can actually enjoy the ride, enjoy the car, as opposed to, oh, I need to do this. I need to get the numbers up. I need to, you know, whatever is going up, right?
Yeah.
But
What would you? This is a question that's come to me, is because I say this to men a lot. Is like, okay, get into your body, be present to now. And I've seen it even with our clients when you say them about sex, they're like, but how? What? How do I be more present?
Yeah, massive. Yeah.
Yeah. It's quite. Every time you catch yourself wandering off in your head, come back to the person in front of you. Or no, first of all, come back to yourself. You know, so really to get to really understand presence, I think you need to really be able to know how to connect to yourself, like, and to be able to spend that time with yourself, to stay with yourself. And then once you can kind of like rod in and center with yourself, then you can hold point to hold presence for whoever's in front of you, you know, whatever kind of intimacy that you're having. But yeah, just being in, you know, really good ways. It's so cliche for me now, probably for you, but just eye gazing, just just sitting with your partner and just eye gazing. Like, it's really okay to ask to do those things, you know. And whenever I sometimes I work with women about coming into conscious sex with their partners, and it's like creating like a beautiful space, like creating like, a lot of people feel that sex is only fun if it just happens. Whereas actually, I think that's when it all gets really confusing. No one's really sure whether they're a full yes, and you know, what's you know going on there. It's probably how we got into like this whole Me Too thing, because we're all like, oh, we're just in the moment. And it's like, that's lovely, but are we all just actually in our conditioning and patterns?
Totally.
You know, and actually to purposefully and intentionally create a space for you and your partner, your lover, like a warm room, candle lit, and then just sit in front of each other and eye gaze. And just look at each other without saying anything. That can be super awkward for some people. You know, to actually look at your lover in the eyes being more awkward than pounding them for 15 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's intimacy. That's when you can really drop into places of discomfort and be with each other and open up in that space. And then take turns in asking for touch. So saying, okay, so I'm going to give to you now, how would you like to receive touch? And that's like, it might be massage. And it's not about trying to arouse them. You know, it's a different energy when somebody says massage me, and then you're trying to like, you know, get in her yoni and like turn her on, and she's like, I just want a massage.
My feet were hurting.
You know, it's like then it gets like that goal driven, like kind of almost taking, like who's giving, who's taking. Who's giving, who's taking, and then swap over, like go to the man, like, you know, what do you know, I'm talking very heteronormative terms here, but you know, what do you want? You know, how can I touch you? What kind of touch would you like to receive? And really slowing things down like that. Voicing your desires. What's your desire for this evening? You know, it's okay to say that. It might not happen, but it's really like to presence, like, this is what I want from you. This is what I desire.
Yeah, I think it's the eye gazing one is an exercise I've given to guys before, but not necessarily with their partner. Is to get them more present to themselves, is to get them to eye gaze in the mirror for a couple of minutes every morning and just see what. And this is the process of being with yourself, is like, see what thoughts and emotions come up that you have about yourself. Because, you know, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you start looking at your face, you might look at your body, your kind of standard patterns of thinking, like, oh, I look like this, my nose is too big, my lips are too small. And it's like, don't judge them, just let them come up. And that is a process of just being with yourself. Like I always sort of recommend to guys is meditation. Like that is the ultimate like process of just being with yourself. And it's done for me some wonders in just like being in the moment, especially when the desire starts to kick in, you know, for men, they know it just builds up in your groin, the desire comes and your mind just goes to one place. But when you're used to kind of being with yourself and being able to step back from what you're feeling through meditation, in those moments you can go, there's some desire here, but what I really want is to be calm and centered and be in this moment, not in the moment of where I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, to be able to have desires and urges and not have to act on them, and you know, that's meditation, isn't it? To for things to come up and be present, but to be able to witness them without just acting. You know, our reaction level is a reaction kind of time frame between something arising and us doing is so small, but through meditation you can create that space, like, okay, this is coming up, but I can just be present with it and be present with actually what's happening in this space as well.
One of the things I feel is incredibly important is like I think you mentioned it earlier, is about holding space. And I feel like this term it's very vague if you don't know what it means. And I've come to believe it's, for me, as I define it to people, it's like a non-judgmental attention that you hold for a woman on her. So it's like, it's it's like a whole bubble of when she comes into your presence, when she's talking to you about maybe her desires or maybe even just how she's feeling, there's no judgment from you. You just listen and you're like, okay, what do you need? How are you feeling? Like, it's just no judgment. She doesn't feel your judge. She can say whatever she needs to say and there's no judgment. And I feel like it's a really important thing for a man to cultivate, to hold space for women, because it allows them to really open up their hearts and just open up their emotions to you and feel safe. Like, would you like to speak into that a little bit?
Yes, I mean, speaking to my heart, to be able to just open up, you know, and have somebody witness you, you know, to be able, like, have a potential lover witness you. You can almost tell when someone's checking out or they're looking the other way or checking their phone, and just to be able to have someone be fully present with what's happening opens up for magic. You know, in my lovemaking, I've had like cosmic experiences, altered states of consciousness. I've cried, I've laughed, you know, like all these things happening. And then you also have to allow for like the humanness, like the mess and the noises and the smells and all that stuff. And, you know, like to be able to hold that and embrace it again without judgment. You know, if there is like a judgment or a contraction or a lack of presence, then it's going to be mirrored in the lovership, in the partnership. And that person, the more open you can be in your body, the more surrendered, the more relaxed, the more you're going to experience, the more expansive your experience is going to be. You know, the more pleasure you're going to have, the deeper you're going to connect with that person, be it one night or for, you know, in a relationship. But the more you're going to get from your experience, you know, the more the deeper you're going to go with each other. If you can hold that point of non-judgment and almost support that, you know, so lovers who really embrace my blood, I mean, it just wouldn't be any other way. I just wouldn't be with a lover that found my blood ick. I mean, I might hold space for that until we could work through it, but generally, like, I'm so okay with my moon blood, so it would feel really weird for me to be with someone that wasn't. But yeah, I can understand that it might be weird for some people to be around those sort of liquids and fluids and stuff that come from a woman, and but to just be able to hold space for that, hold space for yourself maybe when those things come up, and then just hold space for the experience and even just presence, what's happening. So just saying, okay, like, you know, is anything you need? Are you okay? I'm feeling a little bit of contraction. Can we just sit with each other for a moment? Like, slowing down and communicating is, you know, it's fucking sexy. You know, it's fucking sexy. It's not sexy when you ignore things and carry on and the energy has shifted and no one's presence in it, and everyone's in contraction and everyone's kind of ignoring awkward. That it just happened. And then you just want to leave, and then you just go, and then you just carry this icky feeling around with you from that experience for both, you know, for the man and the woman.
There's a level of maturity that I'm hearing in this. There's like, because as I reflect on my own journey, a lot of it began with me in terms of like me understanding what my like feelings were around things, or what my shames were around certain things. Because before I could do anything in terms of communicating that with a non-judgmental eye, or coming from that space, I had to be non-judgmental with myself. I have to really be open and okay without going, oh, okay, yeah, this is actually how we all feel. You may not feel the same way as me right now, but somewhere in you is a capacity to be open, like you're talking about, as you so eloquently put, moon blood. Some people may not understand what that means.
No, but I think it's. I feel like with let's just call it period sex in general. There's like a real. You use the word kind of contraction. I would say the word for a lot of men is like fear around it. They feel like it's, like you said, it's like ick. They're like, oh, that's literally the feeling they have is like. And I've had a lot of conversations with men around this over the years, and I'm always in the same space. I'm like, it's just blood. In the same way, when you cut your finger, you don't suddenly go, oh, I've cut my finger. Oh, it's disgusting. But where does the whole idea around period sex being weird or ick come from for you?
I think it's just that mass kind of rejection of our genitals and our sexuality, the suppression of sexuality and our sexual fluids. You know, in the same way, like a wet yoni is not the same as spit. You know, people aren't seeing it. You know, people would kiss and exchange saliva rather than go down on a woman. Yeah. You know, do you see what I mean? It's just like a mass rejection of the fluids in our genitals. Maybe, you know, it is more intimate in the sense that we would be more open to kissing people than necessarily having oral sex. And that's just okay. You know, it's a different part. It's a different kind of physical interaction, perhaps. So the rejection of blood, you know, I don't know. I think just, the sort of general suppression and rejection. You know, the women's periods are, you know, have been massively sort of pushed into the darkness anyway. You know, we kind of like have to hide if we're on our period, and we have to like shove a tampon or a pad up our sleeve. God forbid nobody asks us where we're going or what's going on, or that way there's any blood in the toilet, you know. But I think that is slowly shifting. It's, you know, one of the things that a lot of women are doing good work around in bringing it out, like period positivity. You know, that kind of idea that it's really shameful to have blood on your trousers when you've leaked, but, you know, like you said, you might cut your arm and have blood on your arm, and people will be like, are you okay? What's wrong? You know? And so I think there's just like this mass kind of programming around it that's shifting, because the period blood is actually really magical. Like it's probably more sort of spiritually speaking, you know, it's part of the cycle of life, isn't it? You know? So when you can kind of see it as more of a gift that a woman is welcoming you into her body when she's bleeding, like what a gift, you know. You can start to kind of shift your ideas around it. You know, it's her tender space, it's her moon time, her bleed, you know, it's what we call our like inner winter. And for women's like bringing you into her inner winter space, you're lucky.
It's my personal experience. It's been that there's a comfortability a woman has with you, and she's like, you know, I'm on my period. And I find it really interesting, because a woman will tell you, she'll say, I'm on my period. And often I found that the words stop after that. And when I was younger, I've never really had an issue with period sex, but when I was younger, my assumption was that she doesn't want to. And as I've got older and kind of, you know, just matured and realized that no, she's actually feeling out. The feminine is feeling out to see how you feel about this. And as a man, if you just say, yeah, beautiful. Cool. Yeah, I'm totally fine with that.
And maybe ask, like, is there anything you need? Like, you know, do you want to be softer? Do you want to go slower? Like, you know, is your cervix more tender? Do I need to be mindful of going that high, that deep? You know, what would feel good for you? Should we grab a towel, put a towel down for her? Yeah. Let her, just free bleed and make love.
I feel like, for me, I grew up in a house of 4 women. So I have this kind of distinct memory when I was about 14 or 15, and my mum going to me, I need you to get me something from the shop round the corner. I was like, okay, what do you want? I was like, I'm playing video games, like, leave me alone. And she was like, I need to get me these. And it was like, she gave me the packet of the pads, and I remember being like, I'm not really sure what these are for, but I kind of think I know what they're for. So I go to the shop, and I walk off, go to the man in the shop. And it was really funny. The man at the shop, he was called Mr. Patel, and he's called Mr. Patel. I was like, I need these. And he looked at me and smiled and was like, yes, gave them to me. I got them, and I went back home. And for me, there was always tampons and pads around. I would regularly go home, look in the toilet. There is a used pad or tampon in the toilet. For me, it's like growing up, it was just a very normal thing. Yeah. So getting into adulthood and experiencing that with women, I was always very interested about kind of periods. So I talk to women at length about it to learn. Like now there's, you know, see coming to the forefront is like moon cups, for instance. Yeah. Like, and I bought one for my partner recently. Like I was in the shop and I saw it, so I bought it for her. And then when she came home, it was on the pillow. What
was her reaction?
And she was like, she was really happy. She was like, you bought it for me. I was like, yeah. You know, because it's like getting closer to women. Like men always go, I want to understand women, I want to talk to them about things. It's like, well, be willing to talk to them about the things that you're slightly uncomfortable with to learn about women. And I think periods is one of those big ones.
And being really okay if, you know, like she bleeds somewhere on, like goes on the sheets and stuff, you know. There's nothing, it's more like that she's going to be way more mortified than you. And completely. For you to, you know, it's something that we go through every single month. Like, you know, if you can't embrace it, then what chance have you got in deepening that relationship truly? If something that happens for, you know, 3 days to a week every single month.
It's true, actually. It's fascinating really when you say it like that, because it's like it is constantly happening.
Every month.
Constantly,
and
then, but as you say, like I hadn't considered how it's actually in the darkness. Like you don't really hear much about it, but it is constantly.
And actually, like our whole lives are built around our cycle.
Completely.
You know, like for example, I'm in my fertility stage now, and I feel more sassy. I feel more vibrant, way more horny as well. But also I have a tracker on my phone for my period as well, and my former lover had access to it, so he knew, and he'd take an interest in like where I was.
What was the app? Was it an app?
Yeah, it's called Clue. But there's a few of them, and you can invite your partners to know as well, especially if you're kind of using your cycle for contraception as well. But just so they, you know, can adjust to, you know, the feminine especially are cyclical. You know, our moods change throughout the month, you know, and then there's flows and dips and highs and lows, and we're here and we're there, and, you know, being able to tune into that and accept that and just like see the beauty in it, and knowing where she's at and what's going on with her is that's really beautiful as well to have. You know, especially as we were saying, periods being so shunned and so sort of considered dirt, to really up level and say, I don't even really, you know, it's not just I want to know about your bleed and nurture you there. I want to know about all the parts of your cycle and nourish you. And then you can, when you know that she's coming on to like PMS, and you know that that's the bit before the bleed, and you know that if you're in tune with your partner, then you'll know that there's certain things that she needs and she wants. You can kind of accommodate for that. You know, and do some lovely things around that time, and adjust to each other, so it's not like, oh, I've got to stay away when she's like this, you know.
Because I was going to say, there's definitely this myth around women and PMS, and it being like, I remember we were talking to someone who was on our research, and he was just like, you know, women go crazy once a month, every month. And I remember we were like, really? That's really not our experience, you know? And he was like, no, it's all of them. I'm like, no, it's not. That's not how it is. And a lot of men have it in their head. It's like, oh, she's really moody. She's coming on her period. I'm going to stay away. And it's like, actually, in those times as a man, what can we do to kind of be there for our partners or our lovers?
Ask.
I feel like that's the key lesson for this. But it's true.
But also that asking leads to deeper intimacy.
Totally.
Because you're opening up conversations to be had between you. And, you know, I kind of want to say that it's almost like there's a lot being put on the men to kind of ask and hold space, but also it's when you open that conversation, it allows you to share how you feel at that time and what the impact is for you, and you know, it just opens up that flow of conversation between you both, so that you can drop into deeper layers of your vulnerability and your emotion as well, which I know might not be as easy for a lot of men as it is for women. But once the woman is opening up, it does give space for the man to open up.
I have a question that keeps popping up in my mind to ask you, which is, how did you get into all of this work? Like, what was your motivation to get into re-understanding the feminine dynamics and the masculine dynamics? And
so it was accidental, I'm doing quotation marks by the way. So I found myself on a Kundalini Tantra yoga teacher training. I didn't know it was that. I just was sick of India. And I was over there, and it was really hot in Goa, and I was at an Ashtanga yoga retreat, and it was just like all kinds of not me. I wasn't going on any of the classes. I was just sunbathing and melting. And I was just like, I was just getting bitten by bed bugs and mosquitoes, and I was like, India is just so hot. I'm just so I feel like I'm ready to go home, but I'm not ready to go home because I'd gone on like this healing journey for a few months. And my friend said, why don't you just go and do a yoga teacher training and then go home? Because I didn't want to be a yoga teacher, but I did love like the philosophy. I liked, I'd done a month-long meditation teacher training. I loved doing puja. I loved the kind of worship. I loved the devotion. And she said, it will just give you an extra skill and deepen your practice a bit. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to Rishikesh because it's too hot down here.
Go to mountains.
And I'm not living in ashram conditions because I've had enough. I was like really bratting it up. And so I was like, how do I find one of these places? She was like, just, go on the Yoga Alliance website or whatever it's called. And so I just went on there and I was like, Rishikesh, yoga teacher training. And the first one that came up was like swimming pool, deluxe air conditioning.
Air conditioning
in India.
It's like, this is real luxury.
I was like, sign me up. So I emailed them and they said, look, we've got one deluxe room available left. I was like, yes, I'm taking that deluxe room, because I was in bunk beds with mosquito nets and fans, and oh my god, I was just not doing so well. And I think it was on the Thursday, and they're like, yeah, it starts on the Monday. I was like, yeah, I'm coming. And I got there, and it was like, I don't know if you've ever been to like Kundalini and the tantric, okay, I say this in the nicest possible way, but the most culty things you can find in spirituality is Kundalini and Tantra. Except I did learn that the definition of a cult is that it's difficult to leave. And that's not present in these places.
Is that what they teach there? I find non-cult places often teach this.
Oh, yeah.
So it's on their door.
I've definitely been
always leave.
I've been in a few places that other people have said are cults, and they're wonderful places. Wonderful community to be part of.
Very friendly.
Everyone's very nice and very loving.
So it was this white tantra, so we weren't doing sexuality work. We were doing a lot of Kundalini work and learning about tantra philosophy, so the masculine and the feminine and the various deities of like Hindu tantra, and it just resonated completely. It was just like a remembering for me. It wasn't like a learning, it was like I know this. And I just had like a insane sort of Kundalini awakening experience, which in turn led to a massive sexual energy awakening experience. And so I had all this sexual energy, and what did I do with it? I was like slipping off to go to the bathroom. I'm doing quotation marks. And just going to my bedroom and masturbating. So I was just like, that's what I knew.
There's just a lot of energy coming up.
Yeah, and then there was like this guy I was kind of flirting with, and I was like, I don't want to get involved while I've got like weeks left. So I like played it until like the last week, and then like reeled him in and just played out all my condition patternings with him, and I was like, oh man, maybe something's not right here. I've got all this sexual energy. Because I was what I realized was very disconnected. I learned to orgasm through porn. So the minute I would get with someone, I would go into fantasy. I would almost kind of like really check out from them, always to the point when I would get to orgasm, I would clench up so much that I would stop breathing to make myself come. It's almost like if I breathed, I would lose it. And it's almost like I want them to stop breathing. Like, just shh, don't make a noise.
No noise.
I'm about to come.
I need that perfect moment of silence.
Yeah. So I was like, I've got, when I'm just going about my day with all this sexual energy, I'm all flow and relaxed and free and feel amazing. And then the minute I actually come to have sex or to orgasm, I completely leave and become really contracted.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, what's this? And so I went on a self-exploration. I also realized that I was just, this sexual energy I was just chasing relationships or men that weren't good for me, which is another pattern. And so I just decided to go on a 9-month celibacy, as in not having sex with anyone else, but exploring myself.
Okay.
And I started to masturbate. I call it self-pleasure now, and meditate. So every time I felt like I was going into fantasy or story, I would meditate. So I'd just bring it back to the breath and be exploring my body so that I could just get present with the sensations in my body without chasing my orgasm, without having to without having to be in my mind to be aroused. It was really a journey of coming back into my body. And then from there, just expanding from that. Then I started learning to move my energy. And what I mean when I say moving my energy is that when you start to move your sexual energy, you're bringing your arousal into different areas. So you can start to feel orgasmic in your whole body. And different things can start to feel orgasmic. So rather than that contraction, when you contract, your sexual energy can't move. And so it just sort of stays in the genitals, and then you it leaves because you have the orgasm and you just expel the energy. When you start to relax the body and let the energy flow, it starts to fill you up so that you start to feel these more expansive orgasmic experiences. And it also takes away the pressure of wanting to orgasm because it's not all building up in your genitals. The energy's dispersed. So you just, I self-pleasure now just to feel a bit more awake, and I won't necessarily have an orgasm. I self-pleasure to manifest. I self-pleasure to relieve anxiety. If you can feel crap in your body, when you feel like I'm anxious, I'm stressed, if you can self-pleasure to feel that goodness in your body, you can completely shift your experience in that moment.
So, thank you so much for sharing. I get why I asked now.
There's a lot now.
I think that right there, we could snip that right there, and we could sell that off the back of a lorry.
Maybe we should consider putting together a nice workshop or something. Because it's really it's beautiful listening to that.
You must know this from Tantra, right?
Sublimation
techniques.
I can tell a small joke with I went through 2 months of I'm not coming, I'm not ejaculating for 2 months, and it's hard, For men, it's really, you really have to have that.
The pain. I don't teach men because I'm no. So blue balls is a thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to not have blue balls because I don't have balls. I don't want to teach men about sublimation techniques.
It's like the presence you have to have when you're going and you're like, okay, I want to come, but I'm not going to do it because I've made a decision not to. And then afterwards, you just have this throbbing. As much as there's a lot of breathing for me that I find works is breathing up the energy in and out across my body. And then afterwards, I'll never forget this one time as the girl I was sleeping with about last year, and she'd gone to the toilet and I lay on my floor and was doing a shoulder stand, and she came in the room and she couldn't see me because I was behind my wardrobe door. And I could hear her footsteps around the room, and she was saw me. She was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, I literally just said, "I'm just pulling the energy down towards my heart. I'll be down in a second." And it really helps. Yeah. And it seems bizarre, okay, you don't come, you build up the energy, but it really helps. And the other thing I found really helps for men actually is breathing. Because like you were saying, when you were saying how you contract and stop breathing, that's what happens to a lot of men when they're about to come. Is if you take in deep breaths in through your nose or through your mouth, you find that the build up that's happening in your cock can spread out through your legs, up through your torso, out through your arms. And I found now that when I can really stay present to it, it's I get this whole tingling across my whole body. And there's times where I have to stop having sex and go, I just need to lie here for a second and just be in this and be present to this, what's in my body. But it's a real magic.
So magic. And so when I pretty much came out of this celibacy, it actually involuntarily went on for 12 months.
Wow.
Involuntarily.
But almost 12 months to the day, I met my first tantric lover who was really super, on the part, like the tantric path. So he like fully initiated me, and we would sublimate together during our lovemaking, and just taught me so much about how to make love and to move energy and to be present with each other. But one thing I want to add is for men not to be afraid to lose their erection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about this actually, because this is a big thing that comes up for men, is performance issues around, I think there's not being able to get erection. There's not being able to keep an erection, and there's coming too quickly. I think those are the three kind of issues that men face that they don't want to talk about. They feel ashamed of. There's a deep shame.
But in what sense are we talking about here in terms of losing your erection? We're talking like
it going during the lovemaking.
And I guess it sort of came up because if you are sort of trying to hold off from coming, then an ejaculation, you might lose your erection.
Okay.
I don't know. Is that a thing, David? Would you say?
Yeah, it happens to me.
If you're trying to bring the energy down, like you're trying to move the energy and bring it down a bit, so you're not like at peak point, and then you might lose your erection.
Okay.
Yeah, it happens to me a lot.
In practicing that.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think the goal-driven mentality is also because it's like, well, I'm hard, so now I need to come because otherwise, if we slow down and stop, I'm going to lose my erection. But it's okay to lose it and to lay together and to kiss and to just relax, and for women to hold space for that too.
Yeah, and be okay with that.
Yeah.
I found surprisingly, as I've got older, I found the more because for me it was more about I want to last longer. So some of these techniques, and the byproduct is that there's like love and beauty into the sex. But actually you find that it's kind of like waves. Like, you get the big hard erection, and then you start having sex, and then you get to this peak where you want to come. Then you breathe it out, and you might slow down that's a very sensible one for guys. If you're coming close to coming, slow down or stop completely. And you need to, as a man, you need to be able to say to the woman you're with, I need to stop right now. Or just hold her in a way that she's not going to move. And that way you can kind of breathe through it. But what can happen is that once you've done that a few times, that during lovemaking, you might go soft again. And there's nothing wrong with continuing with a soft penis or a hard penis, or taking it out and giving it some air. And I find that the air does magic. It just kind of brings it back to life again. It's like, I needed some oxygen. Like a fish.
Daylight.
Want to sleep in there? It's dark. It's cozy. It's all snuggly inside.
And it can come back to life, and it's okay for you to go soft. It's actually completely normal.
Yeah.
And it's something we don't talk about enough. It's completely normal. But you know what? It's completely normal for me in my experience of life.
Yeah. Okay. And you know what? Soft cocks are just as lovable as hard cocks.
There you go. And there's the tagline.
There you go.
There's the title for the episode.
And I think on both sides, like pressuring the other, as in maybe not intentionally, but applying that kind of for the other one to be aroused and to come, is also you're losing presence. Because presence is being with what is actually happening in the moment, isn't it? And if if your cock's gone soft, that's where you're at. That's what's happening. And trying to get it back, unless that's what the person wants, the man wants, but trying to force something is not presence.
Well, again, I'd have to speak into that. I know you've experienced this as well. It's like when a man starts to withhold from coming, because he wants ejaculation because he wants to hold the energy. Because there's a lot, especially as you get older, there's a lot of science behind it as well. Like actually, they call it the small death. When a man comes, it's like the mini death. Is it you a little bit of your energy goes? So much energy. Yeah. It's the golden seed. Is that another way of putting it? And it's like you want to preserve that. You don't want to be spilling all the time. Yeah. But often what can happen as well is that because it's so normal, whether in porn, in media and whatever, that sex is supposed to end with a climax.
Yeah.
And so even a woman can be like, oh, what's wrong? You don't want to come.
That's a good point.
And then it's
the conditioning, isn't it?
Yeah, it's both sides. So it's funny because you were kind of alluding to that there. It's like two people kind of being in that end result of this needs to happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this is not complete.
There's no other, and it's similar to what we had a conversation with one of our mentors, William. It's like when you're so fixated on one possibility, you don't allow for all the other magical possibilities that could unfold.
Exactly. You're missing the journey, because you're just wanting the end goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done it for a long, long time, but I know when I first learnt about it, for some reason the energy was there and I could hold it for ages.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because I think you put it really well earlier. You take the decision before you start.
Yes.
To not come.
Yeah.
And then as you're having sex, the whole thing behind it, you're already perhaps holding inside. So then, and you just last forever, taking like breaks and be like, right, we'll start again in 20 minutes. Like, you literally feel like more of a man in that classical sense. Like, oh my God, I'm literally lasting forever.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's very pleasurable.
Yeah.
Like you're having sex and you're actually feeling, you're in the, I don't know, there probably is a word. I've not studied Tantra, but there's probably a word for this, right? That before you come, there's that euphoric experience that exists, and then you climax if you keep going.
Well, that's basically the orgasm.
Yeah. But you maintain that, like you just like in between the polarity of it, and it's just really fucking fun. You're like, wow, I've never actually stopped to essentially smell the roses. And that's that. Because often we're just racing up the ladder to
because really the ejaculation and then I speak about mostly women orgasm as in the clitoral explosion. That's
sounds amazing. Clitoral explosion.
Well, I've seen it. I wish I was a woman sometimes.
But it's the losing of the orgasm. It's the end.
Yeah.
It's whereas it's called edging.
Edging.
Yeah. So when you get to the bit where you're like, I'm about to come, to stay in that place for a prolonged period of time, that's your orgasm, that's the heaven, that's the bliss, to be able to expand that period of time.
Yeah.
And that's when you find you go in a bit of an altered state of consciousness. Because and they say like the veil is thin between like the material world and the spiritual world, and you're completely embodied. You're almost like formless. Because you're just in. There's nothing. Nothing exists but that feeling.
Yeah.
It's a form of meditation because whenever I've experienced it, you slow down the breathing and you can control it. But then there's also this energy. So you're breathing in and the energy is like, and you breathe it up.
Out to the arms and
now I do that. When I actually do have an explosive orgasm, I can feel my blockages because it will shoot to place and it'll like hit it and it's like a shudder. Yeah. Which is because there's still some sort of like crystallized pockets of blocked, my energy is, something's blocking it from flowing fully and it's too hard, like it's coming through too fast.
I've just realised there's an amazing topic we haven't ever spoken about.
What's that?
The healing D.
And the healing of the sexual healing.
Yeah, the sexual healing. Yeah. Because literally what you're expressing there is that whenever you reach that moment when you have been present and you are with your partner and you're totally intertwined and then they might end up crying or laughing or releasing.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And it's just like, but it's not something like, paint by numbers. No. It's somewhere where
this is a deep presence. Like I've been with lovers before and where emotions come up for them and they just tears flow or even as a man feeling, you really feel into a woman is like, there is right now for her, there is fear and there's worry and I just need to hold her. There's a way in which I need to make love to her right now that actually helps her through whatever she's feeling right now. And at the end, like I've had women turn to me and go, that was exactly what I needed. That's really what I needed tonight. And you're like, thank you. Thank you.
And actually it's something that, by and large, you wouldn't be taught this in schools. It's not basic sex 101. But as you said very early on in this episode about the different experiences that you've had during sex, it can be very physical, but also it can be very healing and releasing.
Yes.
Spiritual.
Spiritual.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of lovemaking that I'm more inclined to have now.
Oh, so bougie. I will only do this.
I will only drink fine champagne and have beautiful sex.
5-star hotels and transcendental sex is all I'm doing. It's
Air
all I'm doing.
conditioning.
Air conditioning.
Brilliant.
But it is like David, you were saying, like once you can really feel when sex is coming from what I would say like the sacral, you know, and it's fine, like, but it's very desire, it's very and desire can tip into greed very easily, you know. But when you're coming from the whole chakra system, sorry, I'm probably talking all these like mad things for your podcast.
You definitely have, yeah.
When you're coming from the heart space, you know, it completely changes things. And what feels important to say to men, like what women need, is the authenticity of them. So it's not the performer, it's not the masks, it's not even the trying to hold space. It's like dropping into your authenticity and like really just being true to who you are and being open with that. And that's confidence as well. Confidence isn't like, oh, I can just walk up to a woman and get her back to my house. You know, confidence is like, you know what, I kind of know who I am a bit and I'm okay with it, and I'm okay with it being seen. And that's the intimacy as well. Like, and I'm okay with showing that to you. It might be a bit scary, but I'm going to show you a bit of me.
And just to speak into that, that's why one of our principles, we don't really talk about the principles, but we have these underlying principles for our podcast. And one of them is that vulnerability is the access to being authentic, because a lot of people talk about authenticity, but what does it mean to be real? And it's like, well, actually, what do I really feel? What's going on? And allowing that to come up and communicating that in such a way that people are like, oh wow, I really get to see you, and now I feel safe to actually share that I also have. You know, so often it's like, I'm not going to say anything until you say something. And now that you say something, I will also share that I have something.
And I see that leadership aspect for a man is leading in the vulnerability. Like, it's something that we're coaching our clients in, and we're seeing like amazing results in a month of just being in that, being vulnerable and basically giving permission to other people to be vulnerable with you. And in sex is exactly the same. It's, you know, it's asking for what you want. It's going for, you know, talking about your desires and needs, talking about your fears even, you know, talking about any performance issues you may have that you are concerned about, and then going, you know, putting that out there and going, this is who I am, and allowing the other person to go, you know what, who I am is, and then speaking for themselves as well.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
I think we can go on forever and ever.
I know.
I have one more question, actually.
Sure.
One more question. So, you know, I know the men that listen and they want to know is like, what is it that the female clients that you are working with, what do they want from sex and intimacy in a man?
Presence. Physical presence, emotional presence, to tune in with each other and communicate.
Wow.
Understanding. I think that generally women want men to open up more. You know, they want to hear, they want to know where the men are at, and want to hear their emotional states and their vulnerabilities, and to be able to find that point of connection there. But to be present, you know, I'm kind of thinking like I've kind of been on this path now, so I'm just remembering kind of like my old kind of connections, and it would be like, you know, just watching Netflix and then having sex, like rubbing bodies together, and then going back to, you know, and it's not that there wasn't intimacy or connection, but it's like we weren't going that deep. You know, really being able to sit and talk about what's happening for you, and carving out that time to really talk and be with each other, and to talk about sex. You know, talk about what you like, what you dislike, what's working, you know, what you want more of, you know, and playing around with it.
being fun, playful,
Yeah.
being fun. Yeah.
Switching roles, holding the feminine pole while the woman holds the masculine pole. That's my new favourite thing.
Yeah, receiving, being in a man, because men don't receive very well. Because we're taught to be taking action and doing.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of this, like, oh, I was with hear from women, I was with this guy and all he did was come and pleasure himself and then leave. But actually, it's almost like that's what he thinks is the leadership. And it's like actually a man lying back and a woman taking the lead in the touching and the holding and the kissing, and you just lying back and receiving.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely been my experience. I think it's kind of something I guess we all agree with here is in being in touch with yourself and allowing then that to come into play, whether it's in sex or just in your natural expression, even in your vocation, your work, your life, how you communicate and how you are with people. Like that is what's really attractive. It's like, because then there is no, it's like you're saying, maybe you might hold the space for a man who wasn't comfortable with period blood and stuff, but eventually you'd want him to reach a point where he was comfortable. And here we're talking about people being comfortable with themselves enough to go, okay, yeah, I'm cool with that, or actually I'm not cool with that, or I'm willing to work towards that, or actually I'm not willing. And I'm very accepting of all things. Something we didn't explicitly say but came to my mind is, and I think it's more and more important these days, is about the masculine and feminine dynamics. How you can have a man who's feminine, you can have a woman who's masculine, and actually what we really need to do is understand our own particular our makeup, and then then it's going to be really, really cool, because then you're going to attract people that match that. And you can also express that very comfortably and just be like, no, this is just me. Yeah.
And that's why when you can tune in with them both, you can play with them. So we're talking very like heteronormative, but ultimately especially when it comes to sex, one person will be holding a feminine pole and one person will be holding the masculine pole, no matter what your gender is, because that creates the charge. Like the give, the receive. The feminine is the receive, the masculine is the give. People in women's bodies generally are receiving by the actual physical act of being open and receiving a cock. But essentially you can switch around with those roles, and you can start to feel in day-to-day life as well. The woman may have a more masculine presence and be attracting more men who are more in their feminine. And then sometimes they're like, oh, the bedroom, I know that then in the bedroom it gets a bit confusing because you're, but being able to tune into those energies within you so that you can shift into them to create the polarity and create the play. And that spark and the charge, it's the electricity between you.
Beautiful. It's like advanced level sex here.
This has been I feel this has been an amazing episode. I feel really full. I feel really full of sex and the beauty of sex. So how can our listeners, our male and female listeners, get in contact with you if they want to work with you? Have you got any workshops or so forth coming up?
Well, coronavirus is
This is a coronavirus-free home.
Has cancelled everything. No, so I run monthly sex magic workshops, which are for women at the moment, because I am creating that safe space for women to explore their bodies and their sexual energy and move it for their own pleasure, but creation, healing. It's pretty much what I told you about learning to move our sexual energy beyond having sex with someone, beyond the sacral stage. And so you can find me at Temple of the Feminine on Instagram, where I share all the kind of things that I've spoken about. And I'm also developing an offering for men, which will be by the end of the year, definitely, but sooner than that.
Wow.
And that will be around a one-to-one session around connecting with women, feeling into energy, learning how to hold space, learning how to be present, just doing different exercises, talking, some sort of touch exercises, trust exercises, and different sort of tantric practices.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's gonna be really cool.
That's gonna be amazing. I feel drawn to that myself.
I can imagine me when at a younger stage that would have been, I say younger, it'd be even more pertinent, because that getting in touch with that side of myself was a huge like it's almost like there's huge shame to it to begin with.
Yeah.
In terms of like, oh, but I'm a man. Why am I getting in touch with the feminine? And then, but that I think introduced to men, is very powerful.
Yeah, and it's kind of sometimes you need someone to model on.
Yeah.
And this isn't a sex session. It's about communication and energy.
Yeah.
And it feels something that I want to hold space for now and hold point for.
Great.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. It's been wonderful today.
Yeah,
a wonderful conversation. I look forward to re-listening and editing it.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.